Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the second series of the MIDierror Meets podcast, where we speak to all kinds of people in the world of music and sound. On the show this time, we've only got Martyn Ware, founder of both the Human League and Heaven 17. He also formed Illustrious, the soundscape company with Vince Clarke, and at the moment he runs a podcast called Electronically Yours, with over 250 episodes that you can tune in and listen to after this one. There are 50 episodes of the first series of the MIDierror Meets podcast, and if you stick around until the end, I will recommend an episode that I think is worth your time listening to from those 50. As always, thank you very much for listening in. It's time to get on with the interview. The first thing that I asked Martyn was about where he's living these days.
Yeah, I live in Marylebone in central London, very close to Baker Street. But I'm on a little mews, which is very, very quiet, which is beautiful. Yeah.
That's fantastic, man. And is your studio also in London?
Yeah, it's in King's Cross at Tile Yard.
Is it?
There's a lot of studios up there. Yeah.
I think Liam Howlett had a studio there at one time.
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, loads of people have got studios there. I think it's about 120 studios in total.
Amazing. And you work with Tile Yard Education, as I understand it.
5 years. I'm no longer working for them, but I was principal of their MA courses in production and songwriting. Yeah.
Amazing. And how did you find that experience? Was it because often when people are teaching, they say that they learn so much through having to articulate themselves. Yeah. How did you find that teaching experience?
Yeah, it's. I'd agree with that as an analysis. I wasn't. It's not something I ever anticipated doing in my life, but I was approached. I was approached to be a kind of like a figurehead, principal, kind of like public face. And the next thing you know, they said, "Oh, would you design a 13-week course for working to commercial brief?" And I'm going, "I've never done any education. I've done loads of lecturing and stuff
Yeah.
on my own stuff to do with 3D sound and creativity and etc. But I've never done anything kind of formal like that. So hey, every day's a school day. You know what they say. We're all learning.
Absolutely.
Always reskilling all the time. I've acquired a lot of skills that I don't particularly want, but it was lovely working with the students. That's what I enjoyed most. All the admin and the paperwork and the marking and all that is just painful, frankly. And I think I could have. It was a 13-week course that I was teaching, and I think I could have taught what I taught them in 3 weeks. But
Wow.
yeah.
Mm. What sort of proportion was it in terms of like hands-on stuff compared to like theoretical?
Well, I gave a 3-hour lecture once a week for 13 weeks. Set a lot of kind of tasks, offline tasks, um, working to brief and film and stuff like that. But in the end, it kind of transmogrified, good word, into into kind of more like mentorship. I decided that my skills, my knowledge was best imparted rather than to a class of 40 or whatever. Uh, more like a kind of mentorship model, really. So I used to mentor about 15, and then I could get into the nitty gritty and go into detail about what they wanted, how they wanted to develop their craft. Do you know what I mean? You can't really do that in a kind of general sense. You can give them some tips, but really, it's down to like, okay, let's see your song in Logic, and why does this bit work? Why doesn't this? Do you emotionally engage people? Where's the lift in this? Etc. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess all your students will have their own motivating factors, and they'll have their own drive and inspiration. So yeah,
Yeah,
I can understand the whole. Like a syllabus doesn't really cater for those nuances.
very generic. And I mean, I'm still in contact with most of the people I mentored. the
Amazing.
on a continuous basis. Maybe only like once a month or something, but I'm happy to do it because I'm fighting the good fight against the homogenization of music, really.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I'm sure for your students as well, it's hugely inspiring to have somebody like yourself pass on knowledge and share ideas, creatively, and also maybe some life advice as well, right?
Yeah,
It's not all about just making music, is it?
well, it's a very fragile time for a lot of people in their 20s nowadays. It's not a terribly the world doesn't seem to appreciate them as they used to, you know? And, so anyway, I've got my own 20-odd-year-old, not children anymore, but, offspring. So I feel very mu I very much believe that, we should treasure our youth and encourage them.
Absolutely.
And it's the exact opposite of what's happening generally in society nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's really true. It's valuable to treasure people who are older and people that are younger, because we're following the footsteps of the people who are older, and the young people are following our footsteps. So if we're rude to them, or if we treat them like, sort of some if we cast them off, or we don't see anything in them, then yeah, who are we
Yeah, yeah.
role models to them, man. Yeah, and you're a fantastic role model
Oh, thanks
for
very much.
them.
Very kind of you. You want a job as a PR person?
Well, I actually do work in marketing,
Yeah, there you go.
kind of journalism and marketing a little bit. Yeah, and can you describe your studio in Talyard? In
Yeah.
Talyard, like what have you got in there? If you sort of take yourself into that room, what can you see?
Okay, so it's just one room. I don't have a recording area, but the room itself is very, very much reminds me of a kind of old school recordings control room, big one. So I used to work at Red Bus Studios off Edgware Road, and it reminds me a bit of that control room. Except in the old control rooms, they had giant desks. This is obviously it's got a desk, but it's all in the box now, pretty much. I've got
Mm,
some my original two synthesizers either side of the desk, which I use on a almost daily basis. My Roland System 100 and the Korg 700S, which are the two machines that we created Being Boiled on.
being boiled, yes, yeah,
Yeah, 47 years ago, can you believe?
that's incredible.
Yeah. So there's that, and just about everything else. I mean, I've got loads of new toys and stuff, but I mean, they're the two key things. Not so much in the way of outboard gear. Pretty much, it's all in the box now. I'm sponsored by Arturia and Roland, so I get all their stuff for free, and that pretty much covers it, doesn't it, really?
It really does. I think, yeah, the Arturia suite is just absolutely phenomenal, and yeah, the Roland stuff is timeless as well. But yeah, particularly the Arturia suite, it's kind of all the best synths in a box, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, putting it bluntly, none of them are remotely as good as the best of the analog world. I mean, and I'm really not a kind of geek fetish guy. I don't collect synthesizers. I've got rid of everything apart from those two synths.
Amazing, wow.
Um, I'm just talking about quality of sound, really. I know a lot
Yeah.
more about the physics now of why that is, by the way.
Mm.
Um, I had it explained to me. It's quite esoteric, but it's to do with the way that digital sound approximates the sound and dithering and all this stuff. And no matter how, I tell you what's really apparent is when we play live. I take the Korg 700S out, and I only play it on one song, which is Being Boiled in the encore. So the whole gig is, some of it's on track, some of it's, a lot of it is keyboards, live vocals, etc. And most of the music that's there is coming from digital machines. Just is. That's the way
Mm.
it is nowadays. Except for this one machine, the Korg 700S. And as soon as I play those three notes at the beginning of Being Boiled, the entire audience goes, "What?" Honestly, it's a totally different experience when you put it through a PA to anything, however expensive your digital synthesizers might be.
How would you describe what that sound is like
It's
from
much
an analog
smoother
sense.
and fatter and expensive sounding, and it's not just about the detailed control you can have, because obviously the filters were better then, the oscillators were better, um, all the components were better. It's not just on a printed circuit board or a chip now. You know, it's literally somebody explained it to me, a physicist explained it to me. It's like you are they're always trying to make things cheaper, right? Of course, so they can make these chips dirt cheap now. You know, all the work goes into the R&D, of course, programming it all. But really, they put them on these big boards, and and they can print. They can create thousands at a time. But it's the amount of actual, the amount of actual current that's going through for the processing to create that sound. It loses some of its fidelity on the way through, so they have to enhance the fidelity, which they can't do, of course, but they can fake it at the other end. So, in other words, it's going through like a mincer and then coming out and being reconstructed at the other end. Whereas with original oscillators from that period, it's pure. And you
Mm.
can actually see this if you look at, which I have on my, you know, computer in the studio. You can put an inline, waveform analyzer. So you can have. I've done it. In fact, you can put one side. You just do like, I don't know, whatever, um, A220, say for instance. You put that on a sine wave through one to the top, and you have the same thing being generated through a synthesizer on the bottom, and they don't look the same.
Mm.
They don't look the same. They should do, but they don't.
Yeah, I do remember playing a friend of mine, James Wiltshire, who was in a duo called the Freemasons. Amazing guy. He had a Jupiter 8 at one point in his studio, and I remember just pressing the keys on that for the first time, and just my jaw hit the
Yeah, it's
floor.
a different experience.
Yeah,
And in
and
fact, the Jupiter 4 is even better than the Jupiter 8. They because I had all these machines. The Jupiter 8, they'd started the process of making the manufacturing of it cheaper internally. So
right, wow.
the filters never sounded as good. I mean, most people wouldn't notice, but this is my life, right? So Jupiter 4 was my ultimate polyphonic synth, really. I think that's the one thing I regret selling, really.
That's always the question, isn't it? When you sell gear, is people saying to you, "Oh, you're going to regret selling that in a few years."
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting that you do, because I was thinking you had quite a like a Zen approach to your synths, just getting rid of them all and just keeping the two that you started off with. But yeah, perhaps there
But
is the odd regret there.
yeah, back in the day, I mean, just about everybody, unless they were like studio obsessives, would sell their 2 or 3 year old synths or part exchange them for the new model. It was like buying a new car or something because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
the new functionality, the new sound. And it's funny, I was actually interviewing Benj. Do you know Benj?
I do. I know of Benj, and I love
Oh,
his YouTube
he's
channel.
great. Yesterday, and he was in his studio, and he's got 1,000 synths, and they're all connected. And the only person I know who's got a bigger collection than that, that's all networked together via CV and Gate, is Vince Clarke.
Right. Wow.
And so I love all that stuff, and it works brilliantly well. But I've got no ambition. I've never had any ambition to own, you know, that. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not interested.
Mm.
It's all
And
about workflow for me.
yeah, I would like. I'm going to go back. We're going to go back to Benj in a minute. But what is your workflow? Yeah, what are your kind of tools for production? What are you using in the studio to make your
Well,
music?
Logic. Funnily enough, not even the latest Logic, because um, it's a bit esoteric. This, but I can't upgrade my very maxed out iMac to the latest operating system on Mac because my company Illustrious, I create three-dimensional soundscapes in ambisonics, and the software that we use is 20 years old now.
Wow.
So it works perfectly up to, I think, 3 iterations away in the past of the operating system. So I can't. I can on my laptop. I've got the latest version on my laptop, ironically, but I can't upgrade it, or else it just won't work on that particular new system. So basically, that's what I do. It's a slightly older operating system. I've got a gazillion plugins.
I can
Uh,
imagine.
I've got, as I mentioned, the System 100 and the Korg 700 that I use on a very regular basis. Um, I have a Kenton which controls the System 100, so we can use it MIDI.
Mm.
I've got. Um, I'm also sponsored by Teenage Engineering, so I've got
Oh, very nice.
stuff. I actually bought an OP one before I contacted them, which I hadn't. But anyway, I've got, those little pocket operator things.
Yeah, love them.
They're just great fun, and so I've got that. They gave me their relatively recent. I can't remember the code name for it,
The
but
KO2, the
it's the
POKO2.
synth that you can plug in different units on the front, and you
Oh, the
assemble.
yellow one.
Yeah, you assemble
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
I've got that. That's a lot of fun. Um,
They make great stuff.
yeah, they have. I better be careful what I say here. I think it's got a
I
bit
can.
expensive, to be honest, for what it is now.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they kind of straddle two ends, as I see it. Like the pocket operators are so affordable; they're
Yeah,
so they fit in your pocket. It's basically a PCB with buttons on, and
brilliant.
it's very affordable. Kids can buy it. I've often recommended friends buy them for their kids. Especially the sampler version. But yes, then they do go the other end, like 2 grand for the OP1 field, and there was the notorious table that they were selling for something like 1,600 quid for what is essentially um,
A mix.
a car boot sale table
Yeah.
for
Oh,
sixteen hundred quid.
right, right.
Yeah,
No,
but I have to say, in
really expensive as well, didn't they? I thought
yeah,
what it was. It looked great, fine, but
I love the POKO2. They did a large form pocket operator, which kind of looks like a big sort of
right.
Casio calculator. And that is my favorite piece of gear in the modern years. And I'm a little bit like you in terms of I don't like to buy much gear. I've got rid of so much stuff. So I'm super minimal in what I keep now. But the POKO is such a fun machine to just sit on the bus or sit in bed. And you can do the whole track, you can do the whole tune in it, and it's got 99 tracks of recording, and all of
Oh,
those are polyphonic MIDI tracks. So you
I've got
can make
I've got to get one of them.
it's
I've got-
so good. You can shoot the MIDI out to 99 different MIDI channels, and they've all you can got samples, multi samples. It's really fun. It's just it brings back a lot of joy to just
Yeah,
making
I
music.
think the important thing for me is not buying a Ferrari. It's not that. I'm not interested in it. I mean, just interested in pieces of kit that have an interesting take on making music. I remember, I think your listeners will like this reference. When we were one of the first bands to actually buy a Mac, an original Mac to make music. And at that point, I can't remember what software it was even. Oh
That's a
God,
good question.
it wasn't anyway. Logic didn't exist at that point. Um, but anyway, it was like a basic DAW, and there were some really esoteric things that people were making for this new amazing machine. Very basic stuff because, of course, it didn't have much memory or processing power at that point. And one of them was a piece of software called M, and it was a randomizer, right?
Mm,
So it was like a kind. I can't hard to describe, but it was like a matrix, a digital matrix on the screen, and depending on which kind of virtual plugs you put in which holes. I'm sure there'll be something on the internet about it. It would generate random patterns in MIDI, and of course, all this stuff can be done. It wasn't random; it was controlled random. You know, it was like you could make it as random as you wanted,
Mm.
depending on what patches you did, and you could route it to different MIDI channels, and So at that point, where MIDI, it was early days for MIDI, really as well. The idea you could have all these things connected was great, but the idea that you could have them all kicking off in a kind of quasi-random fashion was for an experiment. I mean, it's absolutely fucking useless from the point of view of selling records. But it was just fun, and that's what these toys remind me of. I call them toys. It's a bit
They
disparaging.
are toy. I think they're toy. Well, yeah, they are toy. You know, they're toys for adults. You know, we're all sitting in our playroom playing with our toys. I think
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, and also, I find the world of virtual synths can get a bit kind of worthy, can't it? It's like I've lost count of the number of times I get contacted by different companies saying, "Oh, can we send you our new software uh, to try out? And we'll give you can have it and stuff." And it's like I got bored with it. In the end, I just said, "Look, I just stopped," because so many of them are trying to do. They're trying to be all things to all people. It's like jack of all trades, master of none.
Mm.
Everything's got fucking delays, reverbs in it. It's like I don't want any of that. Stop selling me the presets. Start showing me your functionality and the sounds are good. Do you know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, we're writing a lot of the news articles for Sonic State. We see all the new things that are being released, and I think there is, if I'm completely honest, there is a fatigue with it for me, where it's kind of like, yeah, can so like you want people to innovate, really, innovate with new tools rather than regurgitate.
Well, there's a perfect example, and I hope Roland don't knock me off their sponsors list, but I'm going to say it anyway. Um, they did a version of the System 100 on just one of the modules, um, digitally. I can't remember what it's called now. And it was one of the earlier things they did, I think. And it's got the facial looks the same, and it's got the sliders digitally, and on the GUI and everything. And then it's just got a gazillion presets, and every preset has got loads of delays and reverbs and kind of. And I'm going. It got to the point where I couldn't audition anything without having to switch off all the effects, and of
Right? Yeah.
course conceals the shortcomings of the actual sounds. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that kind of feels like a kind of a watering down of the
Yeah.
real module itself.
I'm going and also the actual thing, the actual GUI itself, the visual of the thing, it didn't kind of encourage you to experiment with patching, right? Because it was a bit small, it was a bit fiddly, and so I'm much fonder of things that are kind of designed from scratch. That's just the raw material, the plasticine that you're working with is of a good quality, or the clay, or whatever
Mm.
you wanna call it. That appeals to me, and there are some virtual synths that are really good for that, you know?
Mm. I really enjoy on Benji's videos. He has the patching today section where he gets the big modular synth and he starts the patch off from the initial and he explains every single step for like my mum could understand what he's doing.
Right,
It's
right.
absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about Benj only, and it's great that you've spoken to him
I mean,
because I,
literally this week, yeah.
yeah, because I wanted to, because you've done everyone in the band Creep Show
Yes.
apart from Benj, to my knowledge. So I wanted to ask you, when are you? Will you speak to Benj? Because you've spoken to John Grant, you've spoken to
Yeah,
Stephen Mallender, John Fox.
yeah.
What an amazing band! What an
I am,
amazing band they are.
in awe of what they do. I think they're really good. John Grant's great.
Yeah,
Oh my
what a
god! No, I
guy.
mean, Mal's one of my oldest friends. He was like almost like a mentor to us when we were starting the Human League.
Mm,
And Benji's a lovely guy, and John, of course, is one of my oldest friends. I recorded the first BEF album in 1981 in his studio in the garden.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
So
Where was that studio?
in Shoreditch.
Right. Wow. Yeah, and your interview with him is fantastic. It's such a great conversation.
Yeah, I get a lot of this. It was quite an early one. I mean, I've done like 200, God knows how many now. Two-
Yeah.
250 now. I didn't intend to. This wasn't my intention at all. But it's one of the early ones, and I got lots of comments. That people are super loyal to their particular artist they like. And
That's so true.
John generates that kind of loyalty.
Yes.
And so it was quite early in my kind of podcast journey. And I used to get loads of comments going, "Can you just shut the fuck up? I want to hear John talking," or "Will you stop talking?" I said, "Look, the idea is it's a 50-50 chat between peers. It's not meant to be, I'm not Terry Wogan and just get 'em going and then they talk. That's not what it's about. But clearly, a lot of people don't have any interest in what I've got to say. They just want to hear from the guests. So there you go. I just thought that was funny, particularly with John, because people regard John as like, I've discovered him. You know, it's almost
Yeah.
like a secret.
He is a bit. I mean, he's very much, if people know of his work, they're a huge fan. And if they don't know of his work, they're just like, I've never heard of him, and they're kind of dismissive. But yeah, John is an amazing guy. And it's funny that you talk about that loyalty, because it reminds me of when I saw Creepshow play, and I went with a few different friends, some of them who are a bit older, maybe in their 60s. I'm in my 40s. So I was going there principally to see John Grant, because I'm a huge John Grant fan, and but my friends were going to see like Stephen Malder and John Fox, but
Right.
they weren't interested in John Grant, and I was kind of less interested in John Fox and Stephen Malder because I was such a huge John Grant fan. But what happened in the audience was amazing that night, because in between songs people were shouting things like, "I love you, John."
Yeah.
But then it was kind of like a competition between the audience to like shout out the
Oh,
one that they were
wow,
most into.
that's great. I
It
love
was so funny. It was brilliant.
who
I've
won
just never
who won
experienced.
who got the most shouts?
I think do you know what? I don't know, because I was like, it was I can't remember. I think it was John, possibly John or Stephen. Sorry, John Fox or Stephen. But yeah, I just remember thinking, wow, I've never been to a gig where people are so into like
Yeah,
their own quarter of the
that's
band.
funny, that's funny.
Yeah, one thing I'd love to ask is about how do you make electronic music soulful? Like, I think you've done that throughout your career. Like, where yeah, how do you go about doing that?
Well, first of all, you've gotta want to do it. I mean, it's like I grew up with soul music. My elder sisters, who were 10 and 20 years older than me, had a big record collection when I was growing up of Motown and Black American imported music and stuff. So I grew up with it and used to go to soul clubs. To be honest, I was more of a soul fan than a kind of, new romantic. I mean, I was a big glam fan as well.
Hmm.
Um,
What sort of bands?
or glam,
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
or,
the
or, or
soul, the glam.
soul glam. I mean, the whole swathe of soul music coming that swept across Britain at that point. I mean, I was a massive um, Motown fan, but also, Marvin Gaye, of course, and a lot of early kind of Black American dance music, and obviously things like Michael Jackson. Massive Cameo fan. Uh, Things that had a kind of very melodic edge and kind of classic songwriting, but a bit later on had an element of kind of fu- future leaningness. If I can't think of another way of describing it,
Mm,
because a lot of kind of 70s productions and Norman Whitfield and kind of and they were starting to use synthesizers, and they were starting to move towards a kind of future sound. This is before hip hop, but you know, and then of course when hip hop came along, I was obsessed with that, and still to a certain not obsessed, but I still believe that internationally hip hop is the lingua franca of protest and creativity. more so than just more corporately controlled white music.
Yeah, I guess it's often people who are on the or maybe feel on the periphery of society, and so you get a real view of how they really feel.
Yeah, I had an amazing experience. I work with a charity called In Place of War, and we go to like kind of war torn or extreme poverty stricken areas of the world and provide them with like studio equipment and create tools for creativity, which and then we teach them how to use it, of course, and all that stuff. And then everywhere we went, South America, Africa, you know, different poor parts. We went to Zimbabwe, we went to Brazil, we went to blah blah blah, etc.
Wow, that's cool,
They are
man.
all they were all obsessed with hip hop, but a lot of the time it was their own version.
Hmm.
So really, it was their way of expressing themselves culturally, and we were providing a kind of access route for them to get into different markets. Because what we would do is we'd find the best people in each area, and we'd organise them to get a trip to I don't know somebody from Zimbabwe to perform in whatever Kosovo or you name it. Yeah, and so this kind of admixture of influences was very important, with the unifying influence of hip hop and the kind of future facingness of drum machines, synthesizers, in the box stuff that's cheap. You can create stuff on a laptop. We created a hip hop album in Zimbabwe in a week, just using me and another producer called Akinola from Manchester, who's a kind of
Mm.
house producer. We produced an album in a week in a room smaller than my front room here, with an ad hoc vocal booth, which is a blanket, two laptops, no drum machines, no synthesizers, just in the box synths on virtual synths, and we did a hip hop album with them in a week, and it was
That's
amazing.
fantastic, man. That's great work. What's the name of the charity again, just so people can check
In
it out?
Place of War,
In Place of War, yeah.
yeah, it's really good. This made me a fellow last year. Brian Eno is part of it as well, and Ed O'Brien from Radiohead, and
Fantastic.
various other hip hop and DJs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think I've spent time living abroad myself, and I think it's important to represent where you're from in a positive light, because often the government doesn't represent us very well abroad. Let's put it that way.
Well, I've done some work with the British Council. I've done sound installations in the Venice Architectural Biennale in the British Pavilion, for instance. That's all administered by the British Council. And I've been on various trade missions abroad, and it's really old fashioned. I have to say, it's like it needs ripping up and starting again. I think
Mm. How would you start the ripping up and starting again? Where would you
I'd sack
what needs to
everyone, make
change?
them reapply for the jobs, and stop it being like a nice cozy. Oh, send this lot out to Hong Kong, give them a nice house, and all they got to do is schmooze the occasional person who comes into town. They're not really proactive. They're kind of coping with the historical precedent all the time.
Mm.
Kind of legacy of empire, frankly.
Yeah,
Uh, and and what this is, I can only speak as I find. That's what I saw, and
absolutely.
and I mean, like I'll give you an example. We did, as I said, this big installation in the British Pavilion, and normally when we do an installation in a museum or whatever, we have maybe, if we're lucky, a week to install. Uh, we could probably do it in two. Often we do it in 2 or 3 days. Uh, they had 6 months,
Wow.
and people were being employed by the British Council to supervise this. It's this kind of thing, what I'm talking about. And
Yeah, I
but it was very good because I met the Long Blondes there, and I've just finished an album with Kate Jackson, who used to be in the Long Blondes, and they're all electronic album that's going to be coming out soon.
fantastic. Yeah, I did read a post by a guy who has a huge podcast called Tim Ferriss. He's an amazing podcast. And he was talking about if you have a goal that's in 10 years' time for yourself, you have to ask yourself the question, how can I make that happen in 6 months? Like,
Yeah.
why do I need this projected time to make it happen? What are the essential elements that are required? It's like if you've got 10 minutes to get ready for something, you just do what you need to do and get it done.
Work expands to fit the time available. I learned that pretty much from working in very expensive studios when I first started, when we had limited resources in terms of time, and then we had a bit more as we got more successful, and then, you know, and what I kept saying to myself is, if I was paying for this personally,
Mm.
right? And now I'm a freelancer. I've been a freelancer for God knows how long, but back then I didn't know what I was doing. It was all record. The record company just told me what to do. If I was doing this myself and I had a limited amount of time, but they said, right, you get paid a fixed amount of money, but if you can do it in whatever time scale you want, of course you'd do it as quickly as you could. So
Absolutely.
procrastination is the thief of time, of course. I know lots of artists, by the way, who are massive procrastinators.
Hmm. Do you think, does that benefit their art?
No, it destroys it. It erodes it. I mean, I've got a very salient example is Green Gartside, who is one of my best friends. I've produced stuff for him, and he's worked with me on BEF from time to time. He's even performed live with me. Used to be the world's worst procrastinator. He would take years to make an album, and when eventually, in the mid-80s, when my stock was high, shall we say, he came to me and said, "Would you produce a couple of cover version singles for me?" And he was horrified at the fact that I insisted on a limited amount of time in the studio and said, "By next Friday, you can go home. It'll be done." Right?
Mm.
It gave a week per track. You could see him panicking because everything was about perfectionism, and oh, you can never get anyway. What's perfect one day is not perfect the next day, or vice versa. Depending on what my life experience is in a couple of days, I would probably write a different song, let alone a different arrangement. So you said you just got to be authentic to your artistic muse at any given moment in time. Park it, move on. Don't
Mm.
don't keep refining stuff, as you call it. I call it. It's more like eroding the original,
Can be, yeah.
you know. But it's amazingly common. I liken it to that illness that dart players have, where they can't let go of the dart. Dartitis, it's called. Yeah, it's like it's a real thing. It's like a psychological kind of muscle memory thing where they're constantly lining it up, and they can't actually get to the point where they let go.
Wow, that's a good metaphor for
Yeah.
getting things done, isn't it? Because I think that I kind of believe in the 80-20 principle a lot of the time. You get kind of 20, you get 8% of the work done in 20% of the time, and then the rest of it is just like faffing around mostly. And like you say, sometimes you're backtracking and making the idea worse.
I don't
Um,
have any time to faff around, so it's not even a question for me.
yeah,
I'm
because you
always
have a
constantly doing stuff and moving on all the time, every day.
absolutely, yeah. I was gonna mention. I mean, there's so many tracks of where we could go in the conversation, things that I've like circled to talk about. But for example, like your work ethic is phenomenal, really, and your output is just really really admirable. And I think you speaking to, it might have been, maybe it was Steve Coogan you were speaking to, and you described yourself as being fidgety. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know if it's like, I suppose in today's kind of parlance, they'd probably attribute it to ADHD or something. I'm not. When I'm actually in the studio writing music, I'm completely in a kind of theta state. It's
mm,
like time dissolves. My studio's got no windows, no clocks, old school, right? And oftentimes I'm writing, and it's like 5 hours later, and I thought it was like an hour. So I don't think I am ADHD. I'm not quite fidgety in that sense, but I am um, creatively restless, and uh, and I am constantly satisfied with what I do. That's the
That's
other thing.
brilliant, man.
I learnt this from Vince Clarke, interestingly. I was producing I Say with him in his studio, and we were just having a cup of tea and a chat before we started work one day. And out of the blue, he just said to me, Martin, I I think I'm really good. Um, in fact, to the extent that I can't believe that people don't really like everything I do, because I think everything's great. And he wasn't taking the piss. He's,
Yeah,
and that is not even arrogance. He just knows how good he is.
he is super talented. Like, yeah, otherworldly almost, you know?
Yeah. And the other thing about Vince, which I mean, I love him to death. He's a fantastic friend. Um, is I remember one day we were working on these working up the arrangements for various songs on the album. And what he used to do is I used to do about 4 or 5 hours a day and go home, and he'd carry on like into the evening or whatever, uh, doing and manifesting stuff we talked about during the day. Anyway, come in one morning and he said, "What do you think about this?" And he'd kind of worked on it in the way that we described. And I would say, in this particular instance, I said, "I mean, it's fine, but I don't know. There's something I can't. It just." And I suggested a couple of, because it's all CV and gate and connected, and it can just literally turn knobs, and it's not in the box, in other words. And it was all on MC8 or 4, 8, the roll. Anyway, the hardware sequencer.
Mm.
So it's all numbers, and on his BBC B computer with the Umi on. Yeah, that was it. Um, and I'd say, maybe this synth could be a slightly different patch, and he'd have like probably 8 or 10 synths, all kind of networks and everything. And he said, this was quite early in the album. He said, "Do you want to just go out? I'll fix it. Yeah, go and have a cup of tea for 20 minutes and a biscuit, and I'll be, It was in his studio's in an outbuilding in the garden, so went into the house, had a cup of tea, came back 20 minutes later. He changed everything. Every element was different and better.
Wow,
Isn't that amazing? And that is because he has that confidence that he knows what he's doing.
definitely.
It was easier to change it all than just fiddle about with at the edges. And I think that taught me a lot. I just thought, to have that utter confidence and bravery, the equivalent would be erasing a multitrack and just recording it all again with a band, you know, with a different arrangement. And I just thought, I've never met anybody else who's had the bravery to do something like that, and it worked.
Yeah, because I think self-belief is a really powerful thing, isn't it? It's so important. You have to kind of, yeah, I mean, as British people, we're very self-deprecating a lot of the time, but I think recognizing our achievements and our talents is important, with perspective.
It's really important. I mean, when I was teaching and mentoring the students, I used to say to them, I can tell you all the technical aspects and the theoretical aspects of what I've learned as a producer, but the stuff that sticks and what creates your style is based on trial and error, basically. As you go along, it's a very complex um arrow of time, multiple choice thing. I mean, it's like where does the ball drop at the bottom? Of that pinball.
Yeah.
And I am a big believer in the importance of surprise and accidents and randomness. I learnt that from Eno. Very, very early. I realized what he was talking about randomness. And I think that's a major reason why we're facing massive homogeneity in music, in pop music in particular now, that people believe in. They have an almost religious devotion to regularity, and shininess. And I like rough edges. I think that's what makes things interesting. When I produced Terence Trent D'Arby, Sananda Maitreya as he is now. Um, he, we were doing the last track on the album, which was, and he'd not written it, and he came into the studio one day, and he was actually on the album. It's called As Yet Untitled. Still, as I said, that's a fantastic title, uh, and it's just an a cappella. And he sang it to me, and he said, "Oh, because we had all the synths and everything in the studio, and he got his band as well." He said, "What kind of arrangement do you think should be around this?" I said, "We'll just do it a cappella." So he sang it, and there were certain points in the song where his voice cracked, and he kind of slightly missed the tuning on a couple of notes. And I said, "We keep everything. It is so impactful and beautiful and human.
Mm.
If you iron those creases out, it's not as impactful."
Yeah, I think that's yeah. In the age where we can just polish anything,
Yeah,
we can isolate anything. We can do phase analysis on every single
yeah,
sound.
yeah.
Yeah, I think those. Yeah, those the reality of it is so much more beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, it's well. Do you want to all right? It's a rhetorical question, but does one want to get rid of the organic nature of what we do? And the problem is, so many people, for economic reasons and workflow reasons, are just. I've analysed this quite a lot. I think we used to have a thing back in the old days where we used to, I don't know, have a Porter studio or something. We used to make demos, very basic demos of the structures of songs, and we thought that was high tech at the time. It was pretty much, recording onto cassette, and they had a charm because they were low res, they were lo-fi, and they weren't mixed very well, and they weren't fucking everything beautifully separated, but they were lovable, right? So the problem is, we used to call it the demo syndrome. You fall in love with the demo,
Yeah,
right? And you have to break out of that but understand that the reason why the demo affected you in the way it was partly because of the imperfections involved. You don't have to
absolutely.
replicate it, but just acknowledge it. It's an important factor. So I treasure. It's a bit like, oh God, what's it like? What's the metaphor? You know that thing, like Japanese crockery when it breaks, and there's that thing I can't remember what it's called where they put like gold in the crack.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, in the teapot.
It's that.
Mm.
It's that. Like we did when I was doing the second BEF album, I was recording with a live band, a full live band, like 8-piece band with Chaka Khan. And she was going through a tough time at that time. She was, various drugs and stuff. Anyway, she was struggling to kind of focus. Supremely talented woman, right? Um, we did 14 takes on tape of "Someday We'll All Be Free" live with the band. It took me 2 days to comp a vocal from all those. By the time we finished, I wasn't looking for the perfect notes and songs, sorry, lines and stuff. I was looking for the most characterful things in those 14 takes. And we ended up with something that sounded amazing. It sounded like one take because I know what I'm doing. And but that, of course, that is dead simple to do now. But I think the fact that it's easy to do uh, mitigates, not mitigates, wrong word, works against that spontaneity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's an element now of people making music where they're almost going straight into wanting it to be a commercial success.
Mm.
There's a bit of a drive for people. I want to start making music, and I want to monetize it. Whereas I think in some interviews you've done, you've talked about in the beginning days, you were just messing around.
Yeah, yeah.
You were messing around and expressing how you felt.
Well, time to. It's not even like I used to try and explain this to the students. It's not right. Yeah, there's a kind of psychological impetus towards perfection. In I think it's a theoretical consequence of digital audio workstation working with those.
Mm.
I can't really analyze it to the nth degree, but I just sense that's the case. But as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't. when back in the day, we worked with we understood the limitations of what we got. Well, you don't know what you don't know. We didn't know it was gonna turn out like this in the future. But, it's like the limitations we had was the cost of tape, time we had in the studio, which was ticking away and like a taximeter going in the corner in expensive studios. And so the impetus was towards decision making on a micro level, and you had to be sure, not sure, well, you had to be as sure as you could be that what you were putting down was pretty close to exactly what you wanted. But if it had rough edges, that's fine. You were willing to tolerate that. Whereas now, if I'm writing a song on Logic or whatever, I could sing a rough vocal and I might go, it's all right. It's all right. That I'll just fix a couple of things up and we'll use that. And I think that's what a lot of people do now. It's not. There isn't the same weight in the decision making that you make with digital audio workstations
Mm.
as there is with analog tape.
Yeah, and I guess the restrictions of like the early sequences and things that you were
Yeah.
using back in the day, and the methods you had for triggering
And synchronizing
certain sounds.
even before MIDI.
Yeah, how did you do that? How did you
Uh,
get everything working?
it was it was really early days, but we were experimenting with pilot tones. 50 hertz pilot tones was the only way to do it, pretty much. Um, there were a few devices that actually accepted that as an input into their. I can't remember now. It's so long ago, 50 odd years ago. But, yeah, so it was really tough. Before MIDI came out, it was very difficult.
Yeah. You mentioned Terence Trent D'Arby and Chaka Khan and Tina Turner as well. It's amazing the diversity that you of people that you've worked with.
Mm,
It's really admirable.
thank you. It's kind of like well, when the Human League split, we actually signed to Virgin as British Electric Foundation. And so the idea was they could see that we had a kind of house style, myself and Ian, that could easily be kind of imprinted on other singers, and that's why we did the first BEF album with all those guest singers. That's how I met, Tina and everything. And it went on, and so once you've established that you have something different to offer in the marketplace, as soon as I'd done the Tina thing, it was like it's just an endless stream of people contacting me saying, could you? And I didn't do all of them. I mean, I turned down Rod Stewart because he was a Tory, and well, not just a Tory, but a fundraising Tory, right?
Right, yeah.
Um,
Active.
yeah, active. And I turned down. I was offered a Bette Midler album because I thought her career was finished, and then in the next 20 years, she went on to have about 8 Grammy awards, various films. So what do I know?
And oh yeah, just to go to Illustrious, your work with Vince
Yeah.
Clarke. I put a check by that when you mentioned Vince Clarke. Yeah, can you explain what you do? What is it that you do with Vince? I understand you've been sort of in the immersive world for
Yeah.
20 odd years.
Yeah, since 2000, we formed Illustrious. It's right. It was the end of the 1990s, and it was clear to me and Glenn uh, and Vince. We were all kind of delving into the world. We're going, look, the music business as we know it is over. The jobs that I was getting offered, despite the fact I've sold 60 million albums, were like shit, frankly. I mean, I was getting paid less for working with artists that I didn't want to work with, and I didn't. So I just said, right, I'm going to kick that into touch. Um, and we were discussing it with Glenn and Vince, and the three of us were going to form a company together originally.
Hmm.
And Glenn since then has done loads of film and TV work and very well known kind of TV series and stuff, and that's his bread and butter now. So, but me and Vince, to cut a long story short, became very interested in surround sound, and then we got involved in a project in Sheffield called the Museum of Modern Music, a museum or something I can't remember now. Anyway, it was essentially about pop music, a museum of pop music, I think it was. And it was in this brand new building, in the centre of Sheffield, and one of the biggest room was like, they wanted to create an immersive sound experience, and it's quite ahead of the game, really. And so they asked me, because I was involved in the kind of publicising it. I wasn't involved in the curatorship, thank God, because it shut after a year. But they said, um, "Would you and Vince be interested in together with this company called Paul Gilleron Acoustic Design?" They'd already got an ambisonic sound system, which is basically surround sound with height. Um, but at that time, ambisonics was only being used for highly experimental and kind of theoretical things. It was like really, it was all MS DOS light, kind of
Wow.
stuff. And we thought, well, this is not used. This ambisonic sounded great, but it wasn't really usable by musicians. So we got involved and commissioned someone to design a piece of software, which was like a GUI front end, to look a bit like that you could look at from 3 dimensions. You could spin it round, and we designed this software that you could have, where you could have 16 sound objects, virtual sound objects, moving around at 24 frames a second, or static, to matter, in 3 dimensions, and you could program in the size of the space you were addressing and where the speakers were, and it would do the rest, right?
Mm.
And um, the individual virtual sound objects were just addresses in MIDI controller values. So it's X, Y, and Z coordinates were 3 different MIDI controller values. So on Logic, it would just like you'd have like audio track 1 would have attached to it MIDI track 1, and then you could fly it around the room with a 3D joystick and stuff and record it. And so you assemble things really quickly. And in fact, I used to boast back in the day that you could, and still do actually, that I could teach somebody how to use it in an hour, and I don't have to be in the room. It's so easy to use if you know how to use Logic. Uh,
Mm.
it's so intuitive.
Does it integrate within Logic? Are you using it within that system?
Well,
Yeah.
it's a separate piece of software, but it's in line. It's the digital matrix which goes into the software, the 3D software, and then it outputs it to the speakers.
Fantastic.
So, but then you can actually render it as either ambisonic or Dolby Atmos or quadraphonic, whatever you want to do. So we've been using that anyway. We've done 80 major projects around the world. Indoors are out, massive ones, tiny ones. We've done everything from, what's the biggest one we've done? We did a giant square in the center of Mexico City, which was like 200 meters square by 40 meters high, a 38.10 system.
Wow.
We did that. We've done things like in the 2012 Olympics, we did the whole length of the Millennium Bridge across the Thames. We've done
Incredible.
Trafalgar Square, we've done Leicester Square, we've done all the major museums in London, loads of major museums around the world. Done the Tate Turbine Hall. Uh, we've done the Royal Ballet in the Royal Opera House. So
Superb.
yeah, it's really quite something. You should have a look at illustriouscompany.co.uk, and it'll show you. You can dig deeper if you're interested.
I believe you did something in Brighton city centre.
Yeah,
I live in Brighton, so I was really
all
intrigued by
right.
this.
It was amazing. So how these things come out, it just show it's that karmic thing about if you put enough energy out there, something will come back. You don't not sure where it is, but that suits me fine.
Yeah.
I was contacted by the National the Noise Abatement Society, believe it or not, who have got this. They've got this woman who had recently become the kind of CEO, whatever, and she was very future facing, and she'd got a new kind of policy, or the organisation did, that it's not about noise abatement anymore. It's about making better our sound environment, kind of generally,
Mm.
in particularly in urban areas. So the idea of interventions, sonic interventions in urban areas, was something they were looking at. And anyway, so the University of Brighton were doing this project about what to do, and City Council were involved. What to do about this at the bottom of West Street, where all the nightclubs are and stuff. Just for those who don't know, right by the seafront. Um, on a Friday and Saturday night, they explained to us that it was going fucking crazy, right? And it was out of control. They had like 4 or 5 police vans with dogs in the back, and people obviously every off their tits, getting drunk,
Yeah. Shouting.
shouting, biting, bottles being thrown, people falling over, and they were really concerned that it's just bad for everyone, really bad for business as well. So
Mm.
anyway, the behavioural scientist from University of Sussex contacted us via the Noise Abatement Society and said, would you be interested in doing something? I think they'd heard the thing we did in Leicester Square, actually. It- in doing something to alter the atmosphere, sonic atmosphere, of the 100 meters at the bottom of West Street, where everybody congregates, as an experiment. So
Mm. It's a great idea.
yeah, so I said, yeah, of course. It's not going to be cheap because we have to put PA on 2 rings all the way up. And what about people who are what about residents? So they're going to like this? I said, listen, they're so desperate, they're willing to try anything.
Yeah, I
So,
can
and
imagine.
they got the buy-in from all the businesses and residents. So um, went down there a month beforehand to just see, scope it on a Friday night. It was a war zone. I'm not kidding. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've seen it. Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
and I thought, so I went back to the people who were commissioning this and said, look, happy to do this. Firstly, obviously, it's going to cost money to do that. That's one element. Another thing is, I'm not going to do it unless where the control elements are and where I'm essentially DJing from has got to be behind screens in a porta cabin, so that if anybody if it turns nasty and they turn on me, I'm not going to be on a platform like a DJ going, yeah.
Yeah, like David Blaine in a box.
It's not going to do that. I don't want them to see me. So, but I need to be able to see what's going on so I can judge how to DJ the ambience, right?
Wow, that's amazing.
So they did, and they approved that, and they had guards and everything. And and the idea was it was on a Friday. We installed it all on the Friday morning, tested it for a couple of hours in the afternoon, and it was a variety of things we were experimenting with. So it was a lot of the stuff that we'd already designed in 3D. So things like we'd already done a big soundscape based on the sound of waves in 3D. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we brought the waves into and if you shut your eyes, it sounded
Yeah,
like you're
yeah, yeah.
actually, right? So that's one. Then there was like more abstract kind of electronic ambient kind of Eno-esque stuff. Then there were things like we took the most popular dance track we could find at the time. So we looked at what was number one in the dance charts, and it was Beyonce's Countdown, which is a
Mm.
fucking weird song in the first place, right? So I thought what we'd do is, why don't we slow it down but keep it at the same pitch? So we made it half speed just to see if people would understand what it was, and it might distract them enough so they don't kill each other. So we did that. We also did a new version of Being Boiled where we started at quite a fast pace and kind of imperceptibly slowed down the tempo until it ground to a halt at the end to kind of lower people's heart rate.
Wow.
Uh, Loads of stuff anyway. So we basically provisionally pre-programmed about 4 hours worth, but I modulated it according to what the reactions were. At the same time, there were filmmakers live streaming it to the behavioural scientists in University of Sussex in a room full of people. to document it all, and it was a massive success. We started at 8 in the evening. By 11 o'clock, normally the peak of trouble was like 12, 1 in the morning. At
Yeah.
11 by 11 o'clock, the police contacted us and the people in charge and said, "Look, we're gonna deploy the police elsewhere in town because there's no prospect of any trouble here."
That's
For the
incredible.
first time ever, there were no arrests, there was no dogs chasing people, there was nothing. And it was on Halloween, so it was like everybody's in fancy dress. It was the most surreal thing. Um
What a massive operation.
yeah, it was incredible, and, it was so successful, it's become like a kind of, pilot for not pilot, it's
A
become an
blueprint.
exemplar for, the Noise Abatement Society, who are associated with this, movement around the world called positive soundscaping, which
Wow,
is
that
about
sounds cool.
changing for the better sound environments around. You can look it up if you want.
I will do, yeah.
So it's become like a case study for them. And in fact,
That's tremendous.
in the next 6 months, we got approached by 3 different police forces in Britain saying, "Could you do something similar for us?"
That's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
What an amazing, must be so gratifying, like
Well, it might not have worked, but if you don't, you don't. If you don't know, you don't. If you don't try it, you won't know, will you?
exactly. That's really tremendous, man. And yeah, I'm sure. And you and Vince continue to do these installations?
No, I mean, basically, it's like me now. It's been me for the last 10, 12 years. He's more of a sleeping partner now.
Mhm.
Because he lives in America and he's got his own things going on and he's touring all the time. We're still great mates. We're not falling out or anything. It's just it's turned into the detailed work is more about what always been more about what I can bring to the party than him. He's more like he was only ever interested in being the composer. You know what I mean? And now
Mhm.
I do the composing as well. And I brought my son into the whole shebang. He does all the orchestral composing for me as well.
Oh, cool.
And yeah.
Great. Okay, just a couple more questions, if that's okay. Yeah, so I've sort of sourced a couple of questions from the Sonic State audience, just because I know that they're huge fans of yours. First one is from C Strap, who says, in 2001, you produced the album Is It You, Is It Me for the Danish artist Thomas Helmeg.
Oh, yes.
How did that collaboration occur?
Wow. Wow. That's an esoteric question. Um, my name was, one of the go-to producers for a long time. So I suppose he was a fan of both Heaven 17 and the kind of solo artist work that I'd done. And his management just contacted me out of the blue and we got on really well. Thomas Helmig is, he was described to me as the George Michael of Denmark at that time. And I met him, and he's just like a really nice, down to earth guy, good looking guy. He's got a supermodel wife, Helena Christensen, I think she's,
Oh, wow, really? Yeah.
and they live in Denmark. And I'm going, I'd never heard of him, of course. And said basically, he is gigantic in Denmark and some of the Scandinavian countries, and that's about it. So I thought, okay, maybe they're over egging this pudding a bit. I better check it out. And it's true. I went to see him perform in Copenhagen. Copenhagen? Not, yeah, it was Copenhagen. It's not in Denmark, but it's in Denmark.
It is. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Uh, and said, yeah, we'll get you in. And went to see his show. And it was in this big old barn. It was like 12,000 people, of which I'd say 11,700 were women. Like a massive sex symbol. I had no idea. Anyway, we did that album, and I actually did that in my studio at home in the basement, and he loved it. It was in Primrose Hill.
Oh,
I was
wow.
living there at the time, and that's the only album I've ever produced that I'd done completely at home. So, like, my kids were running around and da da da, and it was like a bit odd. We mixed it in a big studio, but yeah, I'm very proud of that album actually.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, good question there. One from Jeff, who's from the Spirit of Gravity, which is an experimental night in Brighton, which is, do you still make abstract stuff like the Dignity of Labour EP?
Yeah. I mean, some of it doesn't reach the light of day. Um, I'm making stuff all the time, but we live in a strange world now where, for people like me, there's no money in it. I mean, recording or it's pointless printing it out digitally because it's like it has no weight, it has no value. It does to
Mm,
people who really like it, of course, but you know what I mean. So it's like I'm quite happy just giving shit away now. Just making music, putting it on SoundCloud or, you know, whatever. I mean, I've got albums with this stuff that I've never bothered releasing, you know.
mm.
And my view is sooner or later something will happen. The tide will change and then somebody will go again, using that metaphor of the ball dropping into the correct hole or whatever. It'll just I'm working with a company called Felt Music at the moment, who are starting a new label. They're like a kind of music supervision company, and they're doing they're working with an ex kind of Sony A&R guy starting this new label, because their view is that ambient and kind of, oh god, what, more like soundtracky type stuff, but without, not for film or TV, is going to be a new growth area. So then my son Gabriel's putting an album out on them. I'm working on an installation at the moment, which is going to be put out on there. These sort of things interest me. I'm not really bothered about the commercial aspects. It's more about doing good work now.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you're right. I think people need ambient music now more than ever. You know, it's kind of therapeutic, meditative,
Yeah,
zen experience. Yeah, so it's great that you're putting it out there for people.
yeah. I mean, I'm doing quite one of the albums that's never been released. I did with some friends of mine who literally do kind of gong baths and kind of resonance events and all this stuff for well-being, and make a damn good living out of it, by the way. They're really good. We performed together, in fact, at a place called the Elb Philharmonie in Hamburg, which is the world's most advanced auditorium. It's incredible. It's like a spaceship.
Wow.
And that was the world's biggest indoor 3D soundscape. We equipped the entire space, which is like 6 stories high, probably, uh, and big. It holds like 3,000 people, um, with 3D sound, and it was like mind-blowingly good.
Wow.
Eh,
Do you know how many channels of audio you were using or any of
Yeah,
the sort of tech stuff?
yeah, that was. I mean, it was live convolving 3D sound in ambisonics, going into, I think it was 32 speakers, PA speakers,
Mm,
with subs, and there's like a ring of subs as well.
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, another question is Derek S. How do you keep the song sounding fresh once you've started composing it?
Don't let it go stale, I think, is the answer to that. Do it as quickly as you feel comfortable with. Fit and forget, you know.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it earlier about just having a little bit of a sense of urgency with what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's all very well. People used to say when I was teaching, some of the other tutors used, in one of their tropes was, be prolific, which I agree with. But there's no point in being prolific if you're just churning out the same stuff all the time. So
Mm,
I'd caveat that by going, be prolific and keep changing. Make an effort. Make an effort to change. I think that's really important.
that's
So
good, man.
keeping it fresh, it has to excite you as well. If it, my view is, after 47 years of doing this, is if I find it interesting, and I've done a lot of stuff and I've heard a lot of stuff. If I find that in some way it tickles my fancy, then there's a good chance a lot of other people will like it. And so you have to trust in your own taste, you know.
Yeah. And I think having it interesting kind of will motivate you and drive you forward, you know, to expand your ideas.
And if you make the effort to have a more interesting kind of taste map, for want of a better word, it will attract people, right? Because people go, he's got a different take on things. Maybe he'd be a good person to work with, or yeah, as a producer, certainly, or as a collaborator, you know. It
Definitely.
it's no I mean, there are millions and millions of people out there who can do things within, say, 70% of their capabilities. It's that extra 30% that's the hard work. It's just people kind of a lot of people have lost the habit of pushing on, you know?
Yeah, like really grafting at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've got an amazing taste map, and I think that's what's made you so successful
You have
over the
that. I've
years.
just thought of that word. There you go.
You got a great taste map, man. Yeah, just in terms of like when you're teaching students, maybe, or when you're talking to people, do you have like a mantra that you live by that you pass on to people?
Oh god, it's all a bit facile, that stuff, isn't it? But,
Do you think?
I do, yeah. I mean, everybody's different, but the point is, you've got to I think really resilience is the key to everything. Resilience and confidence. And it's actually you can't just go, "Oh, today I'll be confident." You know, that takes hard work.
Mm,
And confidence comes from doing a multitude of things and realizing that it's like refining what you're good at, isn't it, really, by trial and error. So I just encourage people to try lots of different things and don't specialize too early, you know. Keep an open
that's
mind.
yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. Just in terms of when you're young, you often get pushed to say, "What job do you want to do when you're older?"
Yeah,
And at the age of 15, you don't even know. You know, you've got to shape that, haven't you?
that's exactly it. I mean, and the other thing is, you know, I mean, obviously, I get asked to talk a lot about stuff right from quite early in my career. And I recently did an autobiography, which makes you kind of reflect in a much more profound manner on what you've been done. And I think what the advice I could offer is, if you're very, very lucky, you won't regret most of what you've done. You know, it's it's I look back on it, and though it's riddled with imperfections, a lot of it. It's I'm proud of it being an authentic expression of where I was at that moment in time. So if you reverse engineer that, you've got to make that happen now, so that when you are my age, you can look back and go, "Oh, I fucking missed that boat." You know, I was too busy making a track that sounds like Ed fucking Sheeran. You know.
Mm, that's
Um,
good advice, man.
yeah, but really, it's like and also the other thing, this is a facile mantra, but it's like it's pretty much true for everything I've ever done. If you chase the money, it runs away.
Wow, yeah.
If you don't chase the money and and you follow your artistic muse, that is attracted to people and to potential success and finance. If for any reason that doesn't work, maybe you need to change your entire methodology or move on to something else. You know, because all you've got ever got to sell is your artistic output, really. Unless you're working in some other part of the industry and you're just doing programming or whatever. You're just like a jobbing musician, but if you want to be a creator, if you want to be a writer or a producer, you've got to have a viewpoint. You can't just ape everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lost count of the number of times I've had this conversation with people, young people.
Steve Coogan mentioned that in when you interviewed him about the integrity of artists or having a voice, like
Yeah.
artists having a voice and a view.
And it's the same in acting. It's the same in film, art, photography, everything. All creative endeavors, theatre. It's the same. It's all the same. You've got to have a viewpoint. You've got to have a something that's unique about what you do. It might not be to everyone's taste. It might not last forever. You might only have I don't know 3 or 4 years in your chosen thing, and then you have to move on to something else for economic reasons. But at least you'll know you've given it a shot, being who you are. You know.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Well, I think that's a great note to wrap up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have anything that you want to share with the audience? Like, I know you're touring later this year, and
Yeah,
you're
in
also
November.
shooting a film.
Yes, a film about the special relationship we have with our audiences, who are a lot of them are crackers, frankly. They follow us around football team, but it's all right. We tell them the crackers. It's fine.
There's one called Sumo, right?
Well,
Who's
yeah,
your
we
yeah.
actually get the audience to chant sumo. Every
He's been to more gigs than your
time. Yeah,
lead
yeah,
singer.
been to 250.
That's a great story. I
Yeah,
saw you on
yeah, yeah,
BBC News.
yeah. No, we're doing a lot of kind of smaller shows over the summer and some big festival shows as well. So come and see us. But in terms of Illustrious, we've got a month show at the Peace Hall in Halifax of an installation called "It's Always Ourselves We Find in the Sea," which is
Wow.
all about 3D sound installation based on water rituals, water gods, and the journey of water and the danger we are in of water crisis in the next 10 years due to climate change. It's free, by the way, the exhibition as well. So that's on starting in April the 4th for a month in Halifax at the Peace Hall, and then I'm off to straight after that off to New York. We've got a big installation on. It's only on for 3 days at the Focus Art Fair in Chelsea, which is based around um, a special. It's based on the artistic conceit of acoustic pharmacology, right?
Wow.
So frequency as medicine, essentially.
That sounds
This
cool.
is an interest I've had for many years, and I've done stuff associated with it before, and it's real. This is all scientifically proven now. So we're doing an installation around the frequency 111 hertz, which actually switches off the prefrontal cortex and puts you into a trance.
Amazing. It sounds like a gong bath. I mean,
Yeah,
gong baths are
that's what.
very transcendental experiences.
This is a specific frequency that is being shown using MRI scans and everything. That if you play it for long enough, you could do a pure frequency. We're creating a big immersive 3D thing based around the core of it as a drone, and then stuff around it. But and the idea, I had this idea. You remember Spiritualized, and they did "We Are Floating in Space,"
Yes,
and they
yeah.
did their artwork was like a tablet box.
Mhm.
Well, I've done the same thing. I've invented a pharmacological name, a drug name called Mesmerine 111.
That's a great name, man.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And and I've even designed the box and everything, and that's going to be the publicity for it. I've even ordered some empty capsules off the internet and say to
Oh,
people,
cool.
you know, if you take one of these, it will enhance your experience. Please note, this is only a placebo.
Yeah, there are no psychedelics involved,
No,
right?
no. But it's funny. I like the idea of it. And I've even designed, like the leaflets you get inside tablet boxes, which has got like contraindications and warnings, and I've
Symptoms,
I've done
side
one like
effects.
that. I've done one like that. It's like safe when used as directed, and then it's like um, I love those leaflets where it goes, these are serious side effects, but only occur in like less than 1% of cases.
Yeah.
So I've done a list of shit like that, right? Because less than 1% includes zero, right? So it's perfect.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for
it's all right.
speaking to us
My
today.
pleasure. It's been an interesting conversation.
That's good. That's really good to hear.
Mm,
Yeah, please continue doing what you're doing, and yeah, we look forward to seeing your work in the future.
yeah, cool.
Thank
All
you
right,
so
then.
much, Martin.
Thank you.
Great
Nice
to
talking
speak to
to you.
you.
Bye.
Wow, Martin Ware, what an amazing guy. So easy to chat to. I mean, Just amazing, just the range of things that were on the table to talk about with him, and hopefully we got into some of the stuff. As an interviewer, I don't really like to ask him the same questions he's had all the time, so hopefully if you want to know about Human League, Heaven 17 and like controversial topics, you'll find that elsewhere. But yeah, huge thanks to Martyn. Go and check out the show that's in Halifax if you're there, and the one in New York as well if you're interested. The one in Halifax is running for a whole month and is free. In terms of recommending an episode this time round, it has to be the John Grant one, where I spoke to John Grant on series 1 of the podcast, and Martyn alluded to it there, or Martyn mentioned it there, how amazing John is as an artist, a singer, songwriter, big into his synths as well. So yeah, plenty to listen to there with John. And highly recommended listening to Creepshow as well, the band we're talking about. But anyway, that's enough from me. Keep it locked on Sonic State. Don't forget you can support us on Patreon if you'd like to. But that's enough from me for this time. Look after each other, and I'll see you again soon.